Hey, sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to the B-Ball Breakdown live show coming at you on a Wednesday this time, a different day, but same great content, and as always, joined by Andrew Combo Salop to discuss the latest in the NBA and everything that you guys want to talk about as well. Don't forget, the best way to get your questions answered is to do a super chat over on YouTube. We'll put the thing up on the screen. We'll give you lots of love and hype. It'll really help us get the lights going on this show. And Combo, thanks for getting here, but back from Indianapolis, huh?
Yeah, great times in Indy. I hear a lot of complaints all over the internet, but I have no complaints. I had a great time in Indy. Was in the building Saturday and Sunday. A lot of great events. Shouts to Google Pixel. Shouts to Wilson. Saw the movie Finding Tony. So AD had this private screening. That was really cool. D Wade had a nice event. D Wade gifted everybody with Timberland boots. It was a great time.
Wow. So you got the VIP treatment, huh?
Yeah. You know, Combo's VIP. B-ball break.
The AD screening of the movie sounds interesting. How does that happen?
A media member friend sent along an RSVP.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice. Media member friend. All right. Well, you're connected, man.
Yeah. I mean, it was great. It was really great times. Walked through the city of Indianapolis. The weird thing is there's a bunch of sushi spots in Indianapolis. I have no idea why, but on every corner there's a sushi spot.
Wow. Well, I guess, the Hoosiers like their sushi, I suppose.
Yeah.
Maybe they get it from Lake Michigan. I have no idea. But nonetheless, great to hear. Anything else? Anything interesting you heard, want to report about it caught your eye, that was interesting about being there? I think a lot of people listening might not even, be aware of all the things that go on in and around an All-Star game.
I mean, I thought it was pretty fun. I know everybody complained about the level of effort in the All-Star game, but part of it was probably because I was really up close, but it's basically like a live workout with a little bit of defense, and it's still the best players in the world, in my opinion, and I got a lot from it, just seeing those guys get up and down the court, getting shots up, getting into their moves. I mean, I would tell you Luka and Jokic, they had no seriousness at all. Like, they were totally joking around. Like, it didn't mean anything to them. Cat almost seemed like he was playing too hard. Like, that guy he looked like he was playing harder in the All-Star game than he was in the playoffs. And then Dame put on a show. I absolutely agreed that he should have been the All-Star MVP. I know a lot of people saying Ty. I mean, partly because he hosted it, but Dame put on a show. I thought it was really fun.
Wait, who won the MVP of the game?
Dame, and he should have, from what I saw.
All right. I have to admit, I watched a little bit. I saw a couple of highlights. I had a tweet that went a little bit viral about seeing Luka shoot a 65-foot shot, and then they try to pretend like it was a 2-for-1, and I'm like, I'll just give you a gif of the guy spit taking laughing, because that just seems silly. By the way, the bromance between Jokic and Luka seems real. It was kind of fun to watch.
I think that's been real, like, since the bubble, or even maybe before then. Like, they've been close for a while now.
Yeah, the Balkans, they have that camaraderie from that area. So,
right.
Always nice to see. I mean, Luka seems to connect with a lot of different players. I remember him and Trae Young were having a lot of fun, maybe last time as well. And just sort of, he's the guy that people, like to hang out with, and he doesn't take it seriously.
I'll tell you what, he smiles through the whole day straight. Like, I didn't see him not smiling once. Like, whether he has the basketball, whether he doesn't, he's just constantly smiling. The guy's always smiling. I think the players love him. I feel like fans are, like, getting annoyed by him for whatever reason. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's him crying to the refs. But the players definitely seem to get along with him.
Yeah, no, I would say the crying to the refs is something, maybe like the instigating fouls and whatever, which I, again, think is a skill and not a thing to be criticizing. But that might be part of it. But he's, we deserve it this year, like a definitive Luka playoff, experience. I feel like we had a little bit of that, and I like to see some more. And it's depressing when we don't get it. So, and that'll also help him cement more of this legacy of who he is, because he absolutely fills up the box score. It's insane. I got to do a video on that probably pretty soon. But where were you sitting for the game?
For Sunday, I was 3 rows behind the bench.
Wow, look at you! Like, all right, look at you, high rolling. How those are you just pulling out your bank account and then buying those tickets, huh?
I did not pay for that. You
did? No, it says you were a guest of somebody.
I was a guest of somebody.
Wow. Look, good for you. Good for you. I mean, I remember I went to the one in New York, and I'm still cold from that. I don't know if I could have handled it.
It was definitely cold. If you don't like the cold, you wouldn't have liked All-Star Weekend. This year, the thing is, like, I don't mind the cold. Like, I kind of like walking in the cold. I'm built a little bit different, Coach Nick.
You are, absolutely. Well, that's good to hear. So we have an interesting question then would be, should they just cancel the All-Star game? I mean, I couldn't believe, I was staggered when I saw the final score. 212 was the winning score. I don't know what you think. I was actually in the building in 1987 in the Chicago All-Star game. I want to say 87. Or
was that the one that kind of had like the stars and it was like kind of like USA colors? It was red, white, and blue.
Yeah, that was the red, white, and blue things, and there was 88, and so I was at that one. That was also a pretty good slam dunk contest as well. I think Michael was in that one. The best one, by the way, I think was not the one in '87 when you can argue Dominique got robbed after Jordan did the two free throw line dunks. I'm pretty sure that's '87. What is happening?
Let's just power through.
It's like it's been getting worse now. But for those of you listening, a bunch of balloons appeared all around my head and behind me too. That was kind of freaky. At any rate, what I was going to say was the one in, I want to say Seattle the year before was the one between Dominique and Michael. That really was a great up there with as good as Aaron Gordon and Levine. So at any rate, I was there, and listen, they had fun back then, but they certainly played hard and they played defense, and no one was worried about getting hurt. So what do you think? Should we cancel the All-Star game or completely radically change it? What's going on?
I wouldn't. I might add some incentives to the winners. I think that could help maybe. I don't know what that might be, but that could probably help. I would also be remiss. I know I'm changing the subject slightly, but the Sabrina Steph 3-point contest, I mean, that was really awesome to see. And that was definitely a highlight of All-Star weekend. I thought, I was never a big fan of the skills challenge, but that was pretty cool as well. And then I thought the dunk contest was underrated. I think Mac jumps even higher now than ever before. But I think the surprise factor isn't there. That's the difference. But, I would not cancel it. I would just figure out ways to tweak it.
Fair enough. I mean, we did do the Elam ending the last.
I love that. A lot of people don't.
And that I did a video on that. It seemed like that saved the All-Star game, and at the very least, it created pockets of more competitiveness during the game, right. And that's good. So I don't know why they didn't do that this year, right?
No, and they didn't even give Nick Elam credit when they did it. They didn't even say it was the Elam ending.
Oh, really? All right. Yeah. Well, that's a problem too. So everyone should get the credit they deserve. We do have let's go to Jason Kelly here with our first super chat. Thank you so much, Jason, for kicking us off. Really generous of you. Really, really appreciate it. He writes, thanks. Every other league's ratings are up. You've got owners selling, worried the league is in trouble. Why isn't the NBA growing like it should be? This is a really, really interesting question. Here's the thing. You can't really compare like the NFL and the NBA, first of all, if you're going to talk about ratings, because almost all the games are on a Sunday when no one's working. They plan their entire week around this event where you can go and you can tailgate and all those different kind of things. It'll never compare. There's only 16 there's more. There's 17 games now, whatever they are, in the regular season. So there's like hardly any games. It's geared more towards that kind of fan who works, and wants to, and it's certainly a bigger fan base in some respects. So that's a thing where I don't think you can compare ratings like that. Now, if you want to compare like EuroLeague ratings and NBA ratings, whatever, and like how that works across continents, maybe. But what do you think? Do you think that the popularity of the NBA is waning?
I don't feel it, but I'm also in a basketball bubble.
Yeah.
So like I'm always having conversations. My timeline is just people who love basketball. I think the general fan would have more insight than even us, right? Like the general sports fan might know if they're more interested in basketball than before, they're less interested in basketball than before. I mean, are we sure that the other leagues' ratings are up and the NBA's ratings are down? I feel like I hear some people say the ratings are up, some people say the ratings are down. This is right up your wheelhouse, Coach Nick. You're actually the guy to dig into the numbers and see if this is actually true. Because I don't know if it's actually true. And often, and shouts to Jason to the super chat, often when somebody says the science is or the numbers is, it doesn't always necessarily mean that's the absolute truth, right? Like you got to dig deeper into the numbers and the science.
So, I mean, obviously, every video I do is insight into what people want to see, what they want to watch. Are they engaged? Are they excited?
Right.
And I will say that it does feel in recent months or years, it's a little bit more of a crapshoot. And the videos I thought would definitely get millions of views do terribly, and the ones that are kind of I didn't think would do great do really well. So it's been harder to predict on that end, and that might mean that we're in a state of flux where people are just sort of, it's unclear to anybody exactly what the audience wants. Certainly on the Twitter side, if you want to take that temperature, there seems to be a real clear issue with the refereeing, the way they're refereeing, and the way that the players are, quote unquote, like getting away with things, and that's turning people off, no matter how much you try and explain why it's skill. So that's something there that they might need to really look at. And because, again, you might not get those fans back, right? It's hard to convince them that it has changed or it's better or they want to watch it. So you hear the whispers about the ratings, and then, they're up, but then they're up compared to, what COVID was, which was a crater for a while. And the streaming stuff and the pirating stuff is all part of this. Would they have a play-in tournament, which is a radical change to the way they do their regular season, if things were going great?
What do you mean by that?
Well, if things were going great, ratings were up, and there's no worries, whatever, then why would you add an in-season tournament?
I mean, what was the Warriors' record when they added KD? I mean, just because you're doing great doesn't mean you don't try to get better.
Fair enough, but that's a radical change. That's not a change on the margins. That's like, really interrupting the regular season schedule. Some of these games that, the stats don't count, whatever that was. I don't even know how they did that. You know what I mean? Like having a big an in-season tournament. That's a radical change. It's not the margins.
Yeah, they also added like the gambling facet to the NBA more, which I thought was really good. And this was another thing. I really maybe I'm just thinking almost too optimistically, but I just feel like you always got to find ways to get better, no matter how good or bad things are going.
And you have to also worry about, speaking like Steph, is, the singular stars that really captured our imaginations are now, LeBron and Steph are going, closer to the end of their careers.
Yeah.
Who are the people that are going to keep everybody in the seats? Is Anthony Edwards going to be that guy? Is it Luka? That's an interesting
Wemby. Wemby will probably be the face eventually.
Yeah, Wemby as well. But so that's the next question. I mean, there's always stars to come and replace the old stars. But do they have the same magnetic personality and qualities that you'd want? Like, that might not even be anything anybody can control. But certainly that seems to be what captures a lot of people's imaginations from the general sense, aside from the million or so diehards for each team, right? There might not even be a million of them, right? Each team might have, some have 1 million, some have 50,000, some have 500,000, whatever it is. Of real diehard fans are going to watch every kind of content you're going to imagine from them. But that's an interesting question, and I don't know. The owner selling is another interesting point. I just think that at some point in business, when you 10x your investment, like you just gotta, you might as well get out. I think it's sort of what they're thinking versus the ratings. But it could very well be that they have things and numbers that we don't know. And it's something that, I'm always worried. It's a little bit of a worrisome thing. And so we'll have to see maybe how like the finals do this year. And then year over year, is there growth from the where they had a big low point around COVID? Are they getting back to where they were before that, for 2017?
Overall, it feels like the game of basketball is growing. And as long as that's happening, I think the NBA will be okay.
Fair enough. I was down in Buenos Aires and I was watching some basketball and seeing the level and the pro teams. It isn't that popular. Like the biggest, most popular pro team in Buenos Aires is, the Boca Juniors. Their stadium, if you want to call it that, their home where they play home games holds 500 people, maybe, So it's not like they have arenas in other countries like that where, people are going and 12,000 people show up to watch a game. You know what I mean? You have the soccer thing, the football thing that's in the way internationally. And then you certainly have the NFL here, which is, takes away things. I'm glad that the NFL season is finally over. Thank goodness. Let's all get on to watching basketball and coming back to my channel, please. And watching more stuff. So the NBA, you're right, might not be growing as much as it should be or could be, but the game of basketball is an interesting thing. I would imagine it's still growing.
Yeah, it feels like it. It feels like, just over, like, there's always going to be peaks and valleys, right? But Coach Dick, you've been involved with basketball for a long time. How much bigger is it now? Like, if you take an elevated perspective, how much bigger is it now than when you first got into the sport?
I'm sure it's a lot bigger. It is.
Right.
There's no question. But it's also hard to measure to some degree, right? I mean, I guess you can try and measure, youth leagues and the participation numbers and all those kind of things. And it's also interesting because we're in a new era where people are learning how to do more and more skills at an earlier and earlier age.
Yeah.
Dunking, for instance, used to be a huge deal. If anybody dunked in a high school, even if we were practicing or screwing around, that was like a cause for everyone losing their minds, even in the 2000s. But now, right, the way they're training, a lot more people can dunk, I guess, in the game. There's more dunks. It doesn't have that same passion, response. And by the way, 3-pointers is even more so that way. Threes were like a real exciting exclamation point on an end of a run in the, the 90s. And now they're so commonplace. We barely, clap our hands on a made three.
Yeah. I mean, Steph Curry analytics, the European style of play, that's all had a major influence on how many threes we shoot in the modern NBA. And, maybe there needs to be more balance, but I feel like there's a trend back to guys getting in the mid-range more than maybe a couple years ago. Like the spot-up mid-range is dead, but the league's best players still have to get in there and hit the mid-range shot. So, I mean, some teams have a healthier shot profile than others, but I could see it being a concern.
Yeah, and by the way, maybe people cheer for the mid-range now, where I certainly get off my chair when I see a shot fake one dribble pull-up from 18. That's exciting to me, since we never see that anymore.
You must like Devin. You must like Devin Booker. Then he does a lot of that.
He does a lot of that. I don't know how much. Am I really into his game? I don't know. Does he leave me a little bit empty? I feel like maybe a little bit, and I'm not even sure to figure out why.
I mean, he's a great player, but I definitely see what you're saying as well.
Like he's a great player, but is he like what where's he ranked? What number would
he's not in the level of like the Jokic's in terms of like being the next face or anything like that. Like the Jokic's, the Lukas, the Wembys, or even the SGAs. Like, man, the way like watching SGA this past weekend, he just moves different. Like there's something different about him. And I don't really see that with Devin Booker. Obviously, Devin Booker's super skilled and he's an elite NBA talent, but SGA is like when you're watching SGA, it's like you've never really seen anything quite like this before.
I hear you. Well, he's so shifty and so explosive isn't even the right word, right? It's quick. It's just like the cat-like quickness that he's got.
And and dexterity, like the way he moves his body.
Booker is averaging a career high in assists this year. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, somebody got to pass the ball.
I mean, you're right. I guess so. I got to do a Phoenix video. I think, right? Do people want to see it? Let me know in the comments if you want to see a Phoenix video. I got to do an OKC video. I want to do that. But Cleveland, has quietly, I think, kind of quietly won 18 of the last 20 games.
Why don't you just do a video on how SGA scores?
Okay. Oh, versus this OKC in general?
No. Just like how SGA scores the basketball. Don't you think people find that interesting? How it's different? How it's different than other stars?
Listen, I will make any piece of content that I feel like people want to watch, and if that's what people want to watch, let me know in the comments.
Well, comment section. Does that sound like a good idea?
Yeah,
I never see the comment section.
If you want to see, Shai Gilgeous just by himself and how he scores a breakdown, those are always fun to do versus like maybe the entire team. Jalen Williams needs hype though. He needs the hype. He's not getting it.
All right. Well, you start with SGA. Jalen Williams will come.
All right. I mean, listen, the whole team is playing really well. They should have, something, but maybe we'll see. What I think I'm discovering in the pick and roll video I just did, which I thought was terrific. It was the top 3 pick and roll pairings and why. I think that maybe people don't like when I do cross teams, more than one team in the video.
I got a question for you. Do you feel like videos do better when it's a unique topic or when it's a trendy topic?
Well, I think the trending topics, if you hit it at the right time, are the ones that do better. So, like, for instance, I did one on, oh my goodness, I forgot what it was. And it was like a day late. I was really busy that first day after whatever happened. I'll look it up in a second. And it did okay, but it should have been huge. And I think it was probably because I missed the window. Now, you look at like a thing like Adrian Griffin, unfortunately, being fired. And when I do a video on coaching get fired, and I get that done pretty quick, those always do maybe the best of all the things, right? It's a timely thing. It's something people want to know.
Maybe because it fits the brand. You are Coach Nick. You're talking about a coach.
I mean, that's probably it too. It's like, Adrian Griffin was kind of shocking. So it was like, oh my God, what went wrong?
Oh, speaking of that, we got a segue, right? To the Austin Rivers.
We do.
JJ
Redick. We must point out the segue. We're supposed to kind of just smoothly go right into it.
You're right. That was unprofessional by Combo.
We're usually so good about that. So anyway,
yeah, I'm like a rookie today. What's going on?
Because Doc, was interviewed by Isola over on Sirius XM. Isola is it Isola or Isola?
Isola, and that's actually, you know what? I heard the JJ take, I heard the Austin take. So fill me in on what Doc actually said.
Okay. You know what? I heard the doc part, only the little section, because there's a whole video thing I got to listen to. Maybe I'll do it when I work out tomorrow. By the way, I've been kind of getting to the gym, way more often. And I discovered that's where you get all your podcast listening in, right? I've been missing out on listening to more pods because I'm, not in the gym. Now I'm in the gym almost every day for a solid 45 minutes or so. I get a good pod. Anyway, but he was
also one last thing. Also, like I feel like my best ideas happen when I'm either taking a walk or working out.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Now the thing with Doc, to start out with that was, so he's being interviewed, and you can tell that he clearly is concerned about the appearance of him coming in for a month before Adrian Griffin got fired to consult, and then all of a sudden he's taking the job. He kind of tried to provide cover for himself, and that's probably true, where he tried to tell the owners, why are you doing this? Like, they're in first place or first or second place, whatever. They're winning a lot of games, whatever. And then he said that the owner said, it's already done. He's fired. So we want you to do it. And then he's like, oh, reluctantly, okay, fine. I'll take the job. Right. Like, that's sort of what he was saying. And it wasn't great. Although I don't know if there was a great way to describe how this all went down that would make him look okay. And meanwhile, then JJ, who played for him for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, right? Really lights him on fire by pointing out the whole thing where he's never held himself accountable for anything. He's always throwing guys under the bus, of which he just did in the video that I shared about, where he talks about guys wanting to go to Cabo early the day before, and they lost to Memphis, and it was a pretty bad showing. Whether or not that's true, whether you felt like guys didn't play hard or whatever, it's not the place to be saying that kind of stuff in a post-game presser in the front of everybody, right? That's not going to help you as a guy taking over in the middle of the year who's got to get this thing turned around quickly. I'm not even sure it's turning around, because meanwhile they're now 3-7. So that was sort of what was going on in the Doc thing. And then, it was nice of his son to step up and try and protect him or defend him.
He said, he basically said that Doc Rivers is his own man. I don't need to defend him. And then he defended him. And not only did he defend him, he started throwing shots at JJ, talking about how he's not the best defender. He's a shooter, but he's not like Steph. He can't really get off the dribble and get into his bag and shoot. Yeah. He's not like Clay. He can't, but I love you, JJ, but I love you. You're a Dookie. I love you, but you can't really do this. And we didn't really.
Yeah.
Yeah. We couldn't really play you because of your defense. But anyway, like, he was like throwing these subtle shots at JJ. And then JJ, on the other hand, he did seem a little bit too emotional. Like,
there's something going on, right?
Yeah. A little too emotional, because, it's good to get emotional on TV. I don't know about emotional. Be passionate is the better word. It's good to be passionate, but to get overly emotional about a topic that you're supposed to be giving analysis on, it's a little funny.
Well, we're getting into a weird territory here when he went off again about, whether it's the player's job to educate the fans, or is it his job as a analyst now. There's a frustration bubbling in the background, with no question, that there might be some stories that we don't know about or some feelings that JJ has from the Clippers days. Now, I did a video a few months ago about Doc's Game 7 losses. That did quite well. People, again, another one of those things where he got fired and it was a big video. And I analyzed all the Game 7s because I wanted to see if there was any kind of pattern here with the way they lose these games. He's lost more Game 7s than anybody else. He's been around longer than anybody else. That's kind of the reason why. But he's lost more 3-1 leads. There's some interesting patterns. You don't want to be part of those clubs. And was it a stretch what I came up with? Maybe, but at some point, because, was it Doc's fault that you'd see some of the worst turnovers imaginable by his stars, right? It's the stars. They turn the ball over. But the one thing that seemed clear was that there's a moment in each of those games where they just mentally fall apart. And I've always felt like what Doc does is his histrionics and his sideline emotional outbursts at the refs and all that stuff affects his players more than he even knows. And he's never been able to control that very well. And as a result, it seems like the players feed off of that and they panic and they struggle the same way in those high pressure moments. Not that you have to be like Brad Stevens, who's like, completely neo Zen, Buddha out there. But there is a sense of emotional calmness or focus that you need to have that certainly his players with the Clippers. I know when I watched it pretty up close, they fed on that, and then it would lead to downfalls. So that's an issue, and I wonder, if JJ will continue to elucidate. But I did forget that they're both Dukies. Interesting, Austin and JJ. They did not play together, did they?
Nah, JJ's older.
He's much older, right? Is he not older?
He's older.
Yeah,
he's definitely older.
So there wasn't any, but he played 4 years, maybe.
I mean, no. Austin played 1 year.
Oh, is that right? All right.
Yeah.
By the way, Austin's going to be one of those interesting conundrums where he was so touted and then struggled to really find himself at all in the NBA, right?
No, he had a pretty long NBA career. I mean, from what I hear from people around the NBA is he's not the most likable guy for coaches. I don't think coaches really like coaching him. From what I hear, maybe I don't know.
Austin is 8 years younger, by the way. He's way younger. So
yeah.
Well, it's funny. I actually got on the court with Austin Rivers a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And it was, by the way, nice enough to do it. He showed us, and by the way, you should go watch it because it's a great move that I don't even know if anybody does. It's like a through the legs jab step thing that I hadn't really seen. This is probably 2012 or something like that when he showed it to me. And we also know that he didn't have much of a relationship with his dad for a while. So it's interesting that he's now defending him and coming to his rescue there, whatever he's doing.
But whenever he defends him, he says he's not defending him, and then he defends him.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on that we don't know that are in the background. We have to somebody.
I mean, that Clippers situation was very convoluted with a lot of stuff going on, right? There was always some kind of drama there. The Chris Paul, the Docs. There's always a lot going on there.
Yeah. Well, we have another super chat to add to this, and we have Pookie with a huge super chat. Thank you. I'll give you a little of that. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? What I just did, the horn, air horn?
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
All right. Sometimes I'm not positive it works and it sounds right, but you can do that. All right, thank you so much, Pookie. This is really, really generous of you for the super chat. Wow, and again, thank you for helping us be part of the show and keep the show going. Why is there such a stark difference in how folks talk about Trae Young versus Luka when they have identical stats outside of rebounding? Luka is viewed as a Hall of Famer versus Trae, who can barely make the All-Star team. That's an interesting question. What do you think?
Yeah, thanks for the super chat, Pookie. I think Trae is greatly underappreciated as a basketball player. So I would agree there with where I think Pookie's trying to get at. I just think Luka is clearly better at the same time. Both guys have really propelled their teams to win playoff series, and Luka brought a team all the way to the Western Conference Finals. I mean, they do it in the biggest moments. Yeah, they do. Exactly. So, I mean, they do it in the biggest moments, but Trae is greatly underappreciated what he could do at his size with not having the most eye-popping athleticism. Obviously, he's super quick. I mean, in the best league in the world is just remarkable. One of the best passers in the league, one of the best scorers in the league. He's a fantastic talent. I would also say he's absolutely non-existent on the defensive side, which causes some problems as well. Luka's not the greatest defender, but he's just a lot bigger, which always helps. I think that's a big distinguishable factor. Distinguishing factor on that side. But
it's interesting. It could be markets, although Dallas is not like that much bigger.
I mean, Coach Nick, Luka's clearly the better player, right?
Luka is?
Yeah.
I mean, and by the way, it could very well be the intangible of him being 6'8".
Yeah,
right?
that makes all the difference.
And that's not because you're right. They have now, and that said, Luka is shooting 49% overall. I wanted to look at that real quick because I'm a little bit concerned sometimes with Trae's shot selection. So Trae is shooting 42.7% overall field goal, and let's see, and 47.6 from two, whereas Luka is 58% from two. And that's a big difference. And that tends to, and it also indicates why he's scoring at 34 a game, versus Trae's 27, maybe is what he had. What is he at? 26.7. Right. So that's there's a little bit of a level to that as well. But I hear you. So I think that's sort of why, right? I mean, Luka is better. Luka does have some intangibles that help him, but I don't know. Trae Young would have to end up winning even more games, his teams, to really, unfortunately, get maybe that more respect. But you're right; he should get more just because he is literally, 6'1" in shoes. and being able, and not very athletic, and being able. I mean, he's quick, but he's not. He doesn't. He's not that strong or
not. I mean, he's vertically challenged, not that tall, and doesn't jump high.
Yeah. And so let's see here. What's Atlanta's record, real quick? I want to see.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. I mean, Luka's a lot more efficient, right?
Yeah. Atlanta's really struggling.
They both have the ability to put the other team's heart in their pocket. I'll give them that. I mean, both of them could do that.
I was really excited about the possibilities of Trae taking that arc when they got to the conference finals and looked like, okay, let's propel them into a really nice team, and they got really good coaching. All those things were sort of building. And then it kind of fell apart, and that could be partly because of Trae, and maybe the John Collins, Trae Young thing, became a problem, and they traded John Collins. I don't know if they thought ultimately that was the best idea, although Collins has ended up being, pretty much the same, or maybe a little less than he was in Utah. But I mean, there was a moment where he was scoring, 20 points, getting 10 rebounds, shooting 40% from three, the prototypical, four. And he could play in that playoff run. He played good defense. And it's just too bad. I wish they could have figured out a way to kind of continue that arc and win more. That would help. Now, Luka hasn't won that much either, right? His teams have been up and down. So it's interesting. It's an interesting question, and I don't know the answer other than there must be a bit more of a magnetic personality part of Luka's game too.
Yeah, I mean, Luka, we talked about it a little bit already. I mean, I think when you have 9 inches on a guy, that matters, right? Like, he's 6'8". So I think we haven't seen a lot of players at Trae's side. And Becky Hammond talked about this when it comes to Jalen Brunson. Like, we haven't seen a lot of teams where your best, your A1 player, your 1A player, if you want to call it, is like 6'2" or under, Yeah. So
that's another point. There he goes. But the winning would definitely do it for Trae. If they can just get a little bit better team around him and figure some things out, I think that he could get back in that conversation, and we would love him even more. That said, he's also shot selection from three has always kept that percentage down, whereas the audacity of Steph is it wouldn't work if he shot 37% from three. Steph needed to shoot 43, 44, 45%, right, to really capture our imaginations. And that's where, Trae doesn't quite get there. And he's taken a lot this year. So, but he's not bad. He's, maybe a little bit above average. But that's not going to get you in that conversation, unfortunately. But, I think in pass for pass, who's better at passing?
Luka. I mean, Trae's a great passer, amazing passer, but I think Luka's better.
Okay. How do you rate that? I guess just vision and.
I think, they both hold the ball a lot, by the way. Like, that's what criticism you could say about them, but they're both super talented. I just think Luka, he makes passes that nobody else could make outside of Jokic. Like, he makes ridiculous passes sometimes. I think actually probably Trae's the best lob passer in the NBA, though, even though Luka's a great lob passer as well. Okay. Trae's a fantastic lob passer.
And he's also the best floater shooter in the league.
Yeah, and he leverages that floater for the lob often.
Exactly. So you can't tell which is which. So those are all things that he maybe someone will do a video about him and remind us all of the Trae Young experience. But all right,
maybe that's Coach Nick.
Maybe that is. If only there was somebody who could do that. I forgot how you pronounce his name. He told me, I think, at some point. Caius. Tell me how it is, and I'll nail it in the comments. Kajani. So forgive me. Case. Let's go with Case. And then he'll correct me. They'll correct me. Thoughts on the Kings? Can they make a run in the second half? Seen a lot off there to know something is off with them. Case. I knew it. It's Case. All right. Thank you. Great question. And the Kings. Now, the Kings have one of the top pick and roll duos in the league. But do you know who the duo is?
I mean, I know Sabonis is probably in that duo. And I'm guessing by the question, the way you're framing it, it's not Fox.
It is not Fox, which is fascinating. It's Malik Monk.
You see how well I know you, Coach Nick?
I know. Listen, I serve them up, and then you hit them out of the park. So
there you go.
Yes, it is Malik Monk. Who, by the way, I love Malik Monk's story. A guy who was a little bit maligned. He was drafted high out of Kentucky, right? Isn't that where he was from? Mm-hmm. And he kind of was struggled, and then he got to the Lakers, and then had a nice run. Then went to then the Kings from the Lakers, I think.
Hornets.
So the Hornets first, or he's from Hornets first, and then the Lakers.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. Anyway, the point being that he started to figure some things out and became a real bucket, like a guy that you really couldn't stop. So it's great to see he's really morphed even more into a ball handling guard in the pick and roll with Sabonis. So you have all the elements you'd want with the Kings. And they're doing fine. Let me check on the standings real quick. They're doing fine. It's a good, you beat the Kings, they're 8th right now in the West, and they're 31-23. So this is a level of prosperity we haven't seen too much of in recent years in Sacramento. But, obviously the Sabonis thing to some degree is an issue defensively.
It's just like, sorry to cut you off, Coach. If it just feels like if you're going to beat the Nuggets, it can't be with the Nugget style of play. Like, styles make fights, they say. And if you're just like the Nuggets but not as good, I mean, it's going to be hard to beat them. Like, as much as I don't like Phoenix in terms of them winning a championship, at least they're doing something different than the Nuggets,
Interesting.
I just don't see them ever beating the Nuggets in a series.
Yeah, I got to dig into the footage a little bit deeper to see. But in the past, what I remembered is, if they're going to, bank on Sabonis being the center,
right,
then that defensively, you're going to have some problems with that. You're always going to be sort of behind the 8 ball. Now, the other thing is they have some nice complementary players. And I love De'Aaron Fox. I think he is a star. He could be, he's a potential all-star every year.
It's crazy he didn't make the all-star game this year, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen.
Sabonis is even crazier.
Right.
Sabonis has been great.
Yeah. I mean, his numbers are, 20 points a game, which is, I think, lower than normal. That 13 boards and 8 assists, though. He's leading dimes. The cool thing about
he's leading the league in rebounds, I think.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing about the Monk Sabonis pick and roll is that, and I wanted to add it into the video, and it was getting long. I didn't, but they do things so much differently than the other three and the top three in those pairings, because the Kings will run action into the pick and roll. They get side to side. They had some screening going so that the defense is now pulled apart, and then you hit them with a screen and roll. That's what makes it so dangerous. If you want to do it like the Bucks do a lot of, which is just like, fist, and then they just run it right at the top, the defense is already set and they're in the way. Now, it's a testament to how good Damian Lillard and Giannis are that they just dominate. It doesn't matter, right? They can go right at the teeth of the defense and get those shots and get those buckets. But by the way, interestingly enough, with the Bucks, Dame's scores are almost all threes and middies. He doesn't get to the basket when Giannis hits the ball screens. Now, he does get to the basket when Portis and Lopez hit the ball screens. I don't know if you saw the video, but it was pretty clear to me watching that is that Lopez and Portis take the man out, lay him out. They are run blocking for Dame on those ball screens. And Giannis does not do that. He's just not as physical, I guess. He's not as thick. Maybe he's so long that they kind of can get around him more.
That has to be something that, Shaq even talked about how they have to set everybody straight, right? Because all the blame's going to go to Dame, Giannis, or Doc. But that has to be communication between Dame and Giannis, right? Like how Dame likes the screen set. Like there has to be open dialogue there. So
it would be nice, for them to know. Now, that said, there were a couple times when he did finally get some good contact on there, and then Dame's getting the threes. So, maybe the argument would just be like, when he does do it, it's like Dame is just either opting for the three. But when you look at the scores, it was kind of interesting and stark to me that he was getting, he gets to the rim a lot more when the ball screens are set in a way like you see Lopez do. But by the way, it could be a personality thing. Giannis is not Lopez. Lopez is, more willing to probably risk a foul to make a hard screen, I guess. And maybe Giannis is not. That's another interesting point. But it's not holding them back. I mean, they're the third best pick and roll pairing, by points per screen than anybody in the league. So the only question then is would you want to have a few more easier scores out of that at the basket for Dame?
I think the Bucks floor is so high, right? Everything hasn't been perfect for them, obviously, this year, and they're still one of the best teams in the East. Yeah. So there's obviously some things to figure out, but in my opinion, they're still legit title contenders. I don't believe in any duo in the playoffs more in the East than Dame and Giannis, and I think they can be really dangerous in the playoffs.
For sure. And by the way, Chris has popped up in the comments.
Shouts to Chris.
Do you want to come on the show? Let me know, Chris, in the comments. We got about maybe a few more minutes left. If you want to jump in for a quick segment, let me know. If you want, I'll email you the link.
Chris has been helping me out with topics for one of my other shows. So shouts to Chris.
Good for you. Maybe you can help me out with some of my topics too. Speaking of which, I did a poll on Twitter and on YouTube because I wanted to know if people actually wanted to see a Caitlin Clark video versus the Cavs. Would you be surprised at the results? Want to know what the results are?
Tell me the results.
The results are, and by the way, it's always interesting to compare the Twitter results with the YouTube results. But the poll right now, and it's pretty much over 806 votes on Twitter. Caitlin Clark, 66.1% want Caitlin Clark over the Cavs. I'm shocked at that. Now the other one is, and keep an eye on Chris. Oh, Chris can't come on. Okay, and then now that YouTube one, let's refresh this and see what we have here. You should be a lot more votes. With the YouTube, there's 3,000 votes, and Caitlin Clark's at 59%. So I am shocked and delighted, by the way. So that people want to see Caitlin Clark. She deserves a lot of hype, more hype than she's gotten. I guess she just broke the record for all-time scoring that Pete Maravich held. Have you seen her play?
Yeah, the way she gets her shot off, very quick, very efficient. Just an absolute dynamo scorer. One of the greatest scorers in NCAA history. I guess one could argue the greatest scorer. Yeah,
without question. And then there's some ridiculousness about. Well, let's see. Who said they didn't? Jay Williams, I think, got embroiled in something where he said she's not great yet. He needs to see more. But it was like, come on, man. You can say she's great without being, without speaking out.
Well, what was the context?
I think he was trying to make it seem like she just needs. I need to see. She needs to prove it more and longer, or whatever. But like, what else? She's been doing it for all these years.
At the college level. At the college level, she needs to prove it more.
I don't know. Listen. He deserves whatever he got on that one. But here's the thing. I've been saying this for years. The women's game tends to be way behind in terms of the training and skill development than the men, unfortunately. And I'd go to watch WNBA games even in the distant past, and you'd see a lot of these former men players coaching the WNBA, and they're like, pound it inside, and you'd see these women who they don't elevate as high as men, and so the defenders can put their hands straight up, and a lot of them have long arms, and they're not going to elevate over that, and so these post-ups ended up being really hard and awkward shots that don't go in very much. Meanwhile, what they really have an advantage in are the jump shooting and shooting off the dribble and shooting from distance. And they wouldn't do it very much. And the three-point frequency in the WNBA is still criminally low. So it's really strange to me. And so I always felt like, gosh, if somebody could figure out how to get a couple of women to elevate a little bit better, train differently so they can elevate, and then they can have more of a modern game, they're just going to destroy everybody. And Caitlin Clark is probably the first prototype of that. We also have Beckers and UNESCO and some of those other women who come in earlier than that, who are now playing like more of a modern game. I believe the Las Vegas Aces won, with a modern game of spreading the floor, shooting threes, and getting to the basket. So there's a lot to be mined there. And funnily enough, I found myself working with a couple of high-level women players recently, and so all of a sudden, maybe I'm the guy who could help, drag more women into the more modern era, versus. And I think part of it is just the coaching. The coaching is caveman coaching in the women's college level, and even WNBA. It's kind of interesting. So once that gets updated and modernized, I think we're going to see a lot better product, and I think people will really start flocking to it even more, and WNBA will make even more money.
Yeah. So next year they're going to do Steph and Clay. Well, that hasn't been said yet, but they might do this as a duo when it comes to Steph and Sabrina. So maybe that could be Sabrina's partner.
Yeah, absolutely. That could be fun. Now we don't know about Caitlin Clark if she's going to come out. They gave her an extra year for COVID. And she can dictate where she wants to get drafted, which is interesting. So I think Caitlin can decide. And then Beckers is coming back, I think, for sure, but they could come out, but here's the thing that, these players can make $3, $4, $5, $6, $10 million a year in doing this. So there's no incentive to jump to the WNBA yet. They could just stay in college, have the whole college experience, and have it be a lot more chill. And make.
Is there actually a chance that they can make more money, or
what? Oh yeah, listen. The rookie salary for WNBA players is $75,000.
Right. But I mean, does that increase their off the court money if they go to the WNBA, or you think it's about the same? Right. Or you think it's about the same?
So I had this conversation earlier with somebody who's involved about that. Like, you can expect that those deals that they have in college will then renew and maybe even get more deals when they get to WNBA. So yeah, they should be able to just sort of go right on and continue that influencer, position. Right. That said, does the college game at the women's level, give them more of a base to draw from? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. It's still kind of new in that respect, but I would imagine that a lot of those deals just continue going on, so they'll make all that extra ancillary money. And you think about it this way: if you're playing on a college team and you're the eighth man, you have a teammate who's making $3 million. Like, that's an interesting dynamic that you have to deal with now as a team. And so you got to figure out whether or not, how that's going to work, and is there going to be jealousy? Is there going to be, are they going to be, those players who have all the money, are they going to be generous with it? Are they going to help their teammates out? All those kind of things. I would imagine if you're getting up to the $3 million a year revenue on deals, that you'd be wise to, set your teammates up and stuff like that with some gear and some stuff and whatever. I think that would be a smart thing to do. We have another super chat. Sumo Pockets 34. Thank you so much, Sumo Pockets. Hey guys, big fan. Can we get your thoughts on Kevin Ollie taking over as Nets head coach, and should they make a playoff push or develop the young talent? This is something no one's really talking about, right? Jacques Vaughn got fired over the weekend. I imagine maybe you were probably around. This is where the GMs and everyone's hanging out and maybe talking SHIT about other people. Like, do you have any insight into what happened with the Nets and why they dismissed Vaughn?
I think, this is from my perspective. I just feel like that whole organization is cultureless, and they have to really figure out what they're going to hang their hat on, because it feels like they don't know who they are. Like, when you look at the Knicks, their two pillars are Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. Like, they got that Nova Knicks vibe, right? Like, Villanova is like the culture there in a lot of different ways. These other teams with some homegrown talent, like the Nuggets, even like the Kings. I mean, Heat is all about culture. Spurs, even though they're terrible this year, it's all about culture. Like the Nets, I feel like, there's some pretty bad teams in the league, but the Nets might have the least culture in the league. And part of that is that they're the second team in New York, kind of like the Clippers, even though the Clippers are playing great this year. But that's the word I think of when I think of the Nets, cultureless, and it's unfortunate it came down to Jacques Vaughn. And obviously Steve Nash had his problems there, and Jacques Vaughn, who I believe is a good coach, I don't know what else he could have done there. I don't know what differently he could have done there. I don't know why he was fired, but I don't even know if, so I think any head coach, any coach coaching basketball wants an NBA head coaching job. But does Kevin Ollie want the Nets to be his first coaching job? Obviously he would take it. Right? Like, you're going to take a head coaching job, but I don't know if that's the place that head coaches want to be.
That's another interesting point. I mean, it sounds like when you go to a Brooklyn Nets game, it's not a home game at all. Like, there's way more fans of the other teams, it sounds like, which is really sad, right? Like, that shouldn't happen.
And Jacques Vaughn seemed like he was like a really good person and a really good coach. So it's just unfortunate. I don't know what he could have done.
Yeah, and he's also considered like the smartest guy in the room, whatever room he's in. But he's not been able to get traction as a head coach well enough, and maybe there's some issues with some playing time stuff. It didn't sound like anything, and there's no real incentive for them to win. I don't think. Let me just check. I'm forgetting where they are right now. They're the Brooklyn Nets are just outside the play-in, a couple 2.5 games out, in 11th spot. So. I don't know. Kevin Ollie is an interesting character as well, because he had won a title with UConn in the second season, and then he gets fired unceremoniously. And then they had a couple seasons where they couldn't sustain that. And then there was allegations of recruiting and whatnot. Probably most of the things that were the allegations are completely legal now, right? So it's like literally one day to the next, suddenly all the things that were people getting in trouble for are legal. But that is interesting. I always found that interesting that Kevin Ollie so soon from winning a national title got fired. So I wonder what that's all about. But I suppose that as far as the coaching goes, he certainly seemed to be able to do that well.
We see coaches in the NBA win titles within the past 2 years to get fired. It's crazy. Then he did a year in Overtime Elite, which is an interesting program, a professional league for high school players. And now I think it'd be a good look for the Nets. I think Kevin Ollie's a really smart basketball guy. So we'll see.
And Sean Marks might have to be a little bit concerned that he might not be around as general manager to hire the next coach either. By the way, if they do bring a new general manager in, Kevin Ollie is gone. I would have to say whenever a general manager comes in, they want to bring in their own guy, their own coach. So that would be one thing I'd look for. I mean, Sean Marks has a good reputation and has been pretty shrewd with some of the moves they've made. So it's not like he should feel pretty good about his spot. That said, I don't know. I would imagine the numbers are against Ollie taking over as permanent head coach. I feel like it's way more often that the interims don't keep that job, right? Like that's generally what happens, but it could. So we'll see. Now, as far as should they continue to make a playoff push, I got to look at the injury issues, because I feel like fully healthy, yes, they should make a playoff push. And I know I'm blanking right now on whether or not they have everybody. What's the story there? Do you know?
No, they're not going to. Yeah, I think they're stuck in purgatory, first of all. But how about Mark Jackson as the head coach, New York City guy?
I don't know. That's all. I don't know. I think he got his shot. I think maybe it didn't go so well, and maybe I don't know. But let's get to the next super chat. Martin Jose, thank you, Martin, friend of the breakdown, for the super chat. Thoughts on Nets firing head coach Jacques Vaughn? So we did kind of cover that again as far as our thoughts. I just think it was strange. I can't quite figure that out exactly why it had to happen, and then only in the sense that maybe. Guys started talking, like, you got to be worried as a coach when all the GMs are and they're talking stuff around the All-Star game, and then poof, they make a decision.
So I heard something about like some of the players being upset that they were trying to revolve things around Ben Simmons or something to that effect.
Oh, I had not heard that. That's interesting.
Yeah,
I had heard maybe some playing time stuff about Cam Thomas and that kind of thing, and there was a clash between like his role with what the ownership wanted and what the coach wanted. I don't know. I
mean, if Cam Thomas is the reason you're getting fired, no offense to him, he's a great scorer, but that shouldn't be the reason why you're getting fired, because Cam Thomas is upset.
Yeah, well, or it could have been more like the owners wanted more Cam Thomas and he didn't want to give him more playing time.
Cam Thomas is an excellent scorer. It's just the other parts of his game.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he gets those shots up. He does. It may not be as efficient as you'd like, but he gets them up.
Yeah.
All right, we have a few more. Cliffside, thank you so much, Cliffside. Really, really generous of you. Are there any teams on the collegiate level that implement your chase defense system yet? I'd love to see how it works in real games. Yes, you can watch Queens College in New York, Division II. They're running it a lot. Off the top of my head right now, I've done so many Zooms with so many teams, probably mostly high school. But I'll prepare something and I'll put it out there. I got to check. Someone was telling me that maybe the Heat were doing something like that the other day against the Celtics. I fired the clips up and I have to go through them carefully to see.
How's it been with Queens? Have you seen, like, they send you some video?
It goes pretty well. There, I think that there's a bit of a struggle to adopt it completely and get all the way behind. So, but even when they don't and they're still playing like sideways to it, like it's still confusing to the offense and they still, freeze. So it's going pretty well. I will say there are times when all the coaches will say stuff like, like they might, put their head in their hands and say, that's not working. We gave up like two wide open threes and a layup. But when you look at it, it was over the course of like 14 possessions, which is like 0.6 points per possession, which is a completely elite level defensive.
So you're saying you're saying the coaches aren't buying all the way in.
Well, it feels bad when you give up a couple threes and a layup. But when you look at it in the context of how many possessions you ran it for, it's no big deal. Like, you got stops on all the other possessions. So
I think no matter what you're running, you have to give it a little bit of a sample size to see if it works or not, right?
Absolutely. Right. Exactly. You have to stick with it longer and you'll go. So we'll see. All the coaches are involved in a Discord we have, and we're slowly getting people to get to start contributing more of their clips. So I'll put a focus on it probably right when the seasons are over in the next couple of weeks, and coaches will have time. I'll make sure to reach out to everybody, get some good clips, put it all together, and come up with another video, and then make another push for the next year. So there we go. So thank you, Cliffside. Great question. Really appreciate that, and appreciate you, Combo, for being here.
Anytime, Coach Dick. We'll get it done again next week.
All right, sounds good. We'll probably be back on our usual Mondays, so don't miss that. And please go watch the video from last time, the pick and roll video. It would be nice if we can get some more views on that one, if you don't mind. And don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? Are you in, Combo?
Yes, sir.